We are joined by Matt Kenseth, driver of the number 20 Home Depot Husky Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing. Kenseth has 2 victories this season, and he won last fall's race at Talladega Superspeedway while driving for Roush Fenway Racing. Matt, last year your average at restrictor plate tracks was 2.0 finish. How will your success at plate tracks in 2013 change now that you're with a different team?
Yeah, that was a pretty gaudy number. I don't think we'll ever be able to do that again. So, it's the same approach. You show up at the track, you go try to lead laps, put yourself in position to win. Last year we had really fast cars at the super speedways, and this year at Daytona we did as well. I think when we had our mechanical problems, we had JGR cars first, second, and third, led some laps there, had ourselves in a good spot. So hopefully going back to Talladega, our cars will have some speed in them again, and we'll be able to make it 500 miles and hopefully be up front and be in that mix.
Thank you, Matt. We'll now go to the media for questions for today's guest, Matt Kenseth.
Thank you. The floor is now open for questions. If you do have a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad at this time. If at any time your question has been answered, you can remove yourself from the queue by pressing 1. If you're using a speakerphone, we ask that while posing your question, you pick up your headset to provide favorable sound quality. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad at this time. Our first question is from Kenny Bruce from NASCAR.com. Please state your question.
Hey, Matt. You won 3 races 2 years ago, and I think you won 3 races last year. You know, we're still early in this season, and you already have 2 wins. Do you feel like you've got a more competitive team around you now than you have had in recent years?
Well, one thing I have been not doing is looking back or really comparing anything that I had going on in the past. I've really been, working on the present and really trying to look forward. And I can tell you that I have a ton of confidence in my race team. These guys are really, really good. We've had our performance has been nothing short of spectacular all year. Although we don't have all the finishes to show for it, I'm real thankful to have 2 wins. We had a couple of races where everything worked out right. So I feel really good about where we're at today. We're still obviously I was trying to move forward, grow as a race team, get the cars faster, do a better job on a track, all that kind of stuff. But I certainly feel good about where we are from a performance standpoint, only being 8 or 9 races into the year, and hopefully we can keep that moving forward.
One more thing, when you look at what you guys have done, do you see areas where you guys can be even better?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think you never stop trying to improve and try to get better, no matter how you're running, whether you're running bad or whether you're running great. I think you always have to keep trying to get better. The sport never stops. Every team is out there trying to figure out every day, every week, every race how to get better and how to beat their competition. So you can never rest. That's for sure. You got to keep working on it. So we're constantly trying to figure out how we can improve and how to get better.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Joe Medley from the Anniston Star. Please state your question.
Yeah, Matt, obviously you've changed teams this year, and you won at Kansas last year, won at Kansas again this year, won here last year in Talladega, and kind of what carries over, I guess, from one team to the next in terms of, package and parallels and just things you have going into this race.
Honestly, everything is really different. I mean, in this season too, if you're ever going to make a change, this was probably a good year to do it with the Generation 6 car coming online. So that was and still is a learning curve, I think, for each and every team, whether you're with the same group, different team, same team, all that stuff. It's still a learning curve. So I like the things that we've done so far. I like where we're at, from a performance perspective. But I wouldn't say really anything carried over from last year and where I was before and any of that kind of stuff. We're more just started off testing this winter and working on these cars, and we just continue to try to do that.
Also, obviously, you had a strong finish last week after what happened in the aftermath of Kansas. Just, you're coming back to a track where you've won here last time. What would it mean to the team, and just to get a win after what's happened?
Yeah, that would be great. Going to Richmond, it was pretty awesome to sit on the pole. That was that felt really good, and obviously we really you want to win every week. But obviously, I think we all here at Joe Gibbs Racing really wanted to try to win that race. So unfortunately, didn't make that happen. Had a good car most of the night. Had a real strong car in the beginning of the race. Pretty decent at the end too. Just got caught up on that outside, with all the varying pit strategies, and just kind of got boxed in, behind the cars and didn't quite get the finish there, that we hoped for. But we did have a good, strong, solid night. So looking forward to going to Talladega. Like I said, Daytona was really good for us. I thought it was a really good speed weeks. We learned a lot throughout speed weeks. I felt like we kept getting better and stronger. And by the 500, I felt like as an organization, we had all three cars where we needed them to be before we had our problems. So hopefully we can take that momentum and go to Talladega and carry that on.
Our next question is from Dave Coleman from Milwaukee Journal. Please state your question.
The stats about your super speedway racing last year and the possibility, the difficulty that would be to match that sort of thing came up earlier. But can you discuss a little bit your comfort, the evolution of your comfort and confidence in super speedway racing over the years? Been doing it for quite a while now. I assume you've feel a lot better about it maybe now than you did before. But was it an evolution, or was there some sort of aha moment where you felt like you caught on, or how has that gone?
Well, no, I think it's really a moving target. Last year and the first race this year as well, have had really fast cars. I think when they changed the rules package to start 2012 with a littler spoiler and got rid of the tandem drafting and all that kind of stuff, that really seemed to help me. I didn't feel like I was really that great at that tandem drafting. It wasn't really necessarily in your comfort zone or something you felt like you were really good at, and there was just a lot going on there. It wasn't really necessarily my favorite kind of racing. So when they changed the rules, it seemed to be good for our cars. It kind of seemed to be good for maybe my style. You had a little bit more control over your own destiny than having to depend on somebody the whole race and have them depend on you. So I think that was part of it, and certainly circumstances as well. We didn't have a lot of problems in the four races last year. Didn't get caught up in any wrecks, didn't break parts, have flat tires, any of that kind of stuff. So that's always important to be successful at a super speedway, is to not get in trouble, because there is so many people that get crashed out, and it's so easy to get yourself knocked out of one of them races.
Along the same lines, how much is the experience of being through a variety of rules packages and basically three different styles of car now, how does that knowledge, how does that help?
Well, you'd like to think that that experience is very, very important and valuable, and they can play off that experience to be successful now, and in the future. Some days you feel like there's a lot of things you learned and it's really helping you, and then other days maybe there's a lot of changes in it and it feels like you're starting over. So I don't know. Plate racing, I always felt like for years and years and years was a weakness of mine, and a lot of days I still feel like it is. But then last year, we had just awesome cars. We really had a shot to win all four of the plate races, which is just crazy. So I don't know. I think it just works in cycles. I just got real fortunate, last year and really Daytona this year as well, how fast our car was, to have the equipment to be able to be up there, because you can be, you can think you are or be the best plate racer in the world and have slow cars, and you're not going to do anything with it. There's just it's very very car dependent, and being with the right cars and being in the right place at the right time, type of racing.
Thanks, Matt.
Our next question is from Nate Ryan from USA Today Sports. Please state your question.
Yeah, Matt, it was this race last fall at Talladega where they had the big last lap crash, and Dale Jr. Missed a couple of races because of the concussion. That was the first time a driver had missed races in Cup because of an injury in 5 years, and then, of course, Denny's been out for several races this year. I was just wondering, When things like that happen, is that a reminder to you, like, wow, this is how safe the cars are now, that it's a big story if somebody is injured, or is it a reminder that at any time things like that can happen, regardless of how safe the cars may seem?
Yeah, I think probably more the second. A reminder that everybody is human. Things can happen. We're going really fast, especially in these new cars. We're setting track records everywhere. So, certainly, it's just human nature. We went through a really dark period where a lot of people got hurt. A lot of bad things were happening, and honestly, it was on everybody's mind, more than normal. And then we went through a really long period where you've seen, some just horrendous wrecks, and watch people walk away from them, and everybody's okay. And I think you always have to take safety seriously and keep working on your cars and the tracks and pit road, everything to keep the environment as safe as you can for everybody. But certainly when you go through a period and people don't get hurt, it's not on your mind, nearly as much. So I think that when you do see people get hurt and have to miss time and all that, it's certainly a reminder that that things can happen.
And just following up on that, when you go back to a track like Dega, and the last memory pretty much everybody has is of that crazy 25-car wreck last October, is that in the back of your mind anymore at a track like this when you guys race there this weekend?
Well, that's not the last memory in my mind from Talladega. So,
I guess it's different for you.
But yeah, I mean, it's different for me. But I was the only one who wasn't in it, I think. So, I think whenever you go to Daytona and Talladega and you go to a restrictor plate race, certainly being in a wreck is more on your mind than any other racetrack. You're going faster, big packs. I mean, ever since I started racing, or really even started watching NASCAR racing, that's the way it's been. The first thing you think of when you think of Talladega, and you want to be honest, you think of a wreck, as a fan or as a driver or whatever. I mean, it's just, usually what comes to your mind is big packs of cars and big wrecks. So certainly I think it's on your mind a little bit more. I don't know. I think the racing's a little different than what it was last year with this particular car. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a learning experience for everybody. And I really don't know, what the race is going to be like yet, but certainly, the potential for a major wreck like we had there last year is always there.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Bob Pockrass from Sporting News. Please state your question.
Yeah, Matt, do you anticipate kind of the same style of race at Talladega as was the Daytona 500, or because of the slightly different track, would that encourage guys maybe taking more chances early?
Well, two things. I would expect the racing to be similar to Daytona. Now, I dropped out of Daytona. I didn't watch the last 50 laps, but up until that point, I would expect the racing to be similar because there was no rules changes. The tracks are a little bit different. There's more room at Talladega. I don't think handling will be a huge issue, although last fall it actually kind of was for some cars. So I expect it to be about the same. But I will say that it's not that in Daytona, it's not that people didn't want to take chances. It's not like you don't want to pass, and if everybody could go up there and have a shot at leading, they'd go do that. So it's just kind of the circumstances and the way the car was and the way the draft worked. It just made the racing different. You had to be much more patient than you had to be last year. You had to be much more calculating, with your move. And it was kind of like the old days. If you made that move and you didn't have a big enough run to get it done, or you didn't have a car to go with you or help or whatever, you could easily get hung out and lose 10 or 15 or more spots before you could get back in line. So I think it's just a little different style of racing.
And considering that you all had those engine issues at Daytona, will you approach practice any differently than other teams? I mean, will you have to run more laps just to make sure everything is good, or do you expect just like most teams, probably run a very limited number of laps in practice and then go race?
Yeah, I would expect just running a very limited amount of laps. I mean, I don't think handling is going to be a big deal. I don't think we have a lot of stuff to work through. I think you have your basic Daytona package. Being an impound racer is really nothing to work on for qualifying except for how much tape you can put on the grill. So I think that, Talladega, especially being impound, is one of them rare races you could almost do the thing in a day. You can almost tech everybody, qualify them, line them up, and race them. So there's just not a lot of. I don't think you see a lot of cars out there doing a whole lot of practice. I think most of your practice is actually during that 500 miles. Figuring out where you can pass, where you can't. Trying to figure out your moves so you have it for the end of the race. So nobody's told me any different, but I wouldn't anticipate a whole bunch of laps in practice.
Thank you.
And our next question is from Brian Pope from Fox 6 WBRC. Please state your question.
Yeah, Matt, you spoke to driver safety a few minutes ago, and I just wanted to ask you, do you feel like the NASCAR and maybe the tracks, specifically Daytona and Talladega, namely, have done enough to protect the fans? People remember Carl Edwards going in the fence a few years ago at Dega, and then, of course, the wreck at Daytona earlier this year. And, of course, the prime seats that the fans want are right there by the fence that you guys are coming around. Do you feel like that there's been enough done there to protect the fans, I guess, just in general?
Well, I mean, saying is there enough done, that's a little bit of a tricky question, because I don't think you ever stop working. I don't think NASCAR's stopped working. The tracks have stopped working. The teams. I don't think anybody has stopped working to make the cars, the fans in the stands, pit road, the whole experience, the whole environment as safe as possible. I think that's constantly trying to improve, constantly trying to get better. So I know they work really hard at that. I mean, every time there's an accident, where somebody gets hurt, or a car hits a wall somewhere where you don't think, or something gets into the stands, certainly that's taken very seriously and looked at, and you try to make those adjustments and get everything safer. You always learn from things going wrong, to try to make it safer in the future. So I think that they're constantly trying to make that better, and I certainly think they've come a long ways in the last few years.
There this year seems to be a little bit more controversy, maybe a little bit more feuds, if you want to use that word, between drivers after races. Different drivers getting into it over different reasons. Is there anything you can put your finger on of why that's happening, and does it seem that way to you? Does it seem more, maybe tempers are a little bit more on edge than normal?
Maybe a little bit more than normal. When you're in a competitive sport, and people are going to get upset with other people and moves they made or didn't make, or things they did or didn't do, and that's just the way auto racing has kind of always been. So I think you go through cycles where things maybe feel pretty calm, and then I think you go through cycles where everything's pretty intense and there's not a lot of happiness. So I think that I just think that's the way the sport works.
Darrell Waltrip was on the local radio here the other day talking about your penalty from last weekend, saying that you guys ought to take that to the Supreme Court. It was so ridiculous. Just your take on everything that happened last weekend.
Yeah, really. I commented in the media a little bit at Richmond about it, and I just really don't want to comment about it anymore until we get through the whole appeals process. See what happens there, and then we'll take it as far as we have to in the appeals process, and see what they come up with, and whatever the penalty is at the end of the day, we'll have to accept that and move on, and talk about it then.
Obviously, you've got some good memories from Talladega from last fall, but is this a track, I know some drivers like it, some don't, different reasons. When you see this track coming up on the schedule, do you kind of dread it, or are you excited about coming here?
Well, I used to dread it. Last year I was really excited about going there because we were just running so great at the plate races, and I'm excited to go this weekend. We had a great Daytona 500 going, until we dropped out of the race, but we had a really competitive car. We were leading the race when we broke, so I'm looking forward to going there. I felt like throughout Speed Weeks we learned a lot. We got our cars a lot better. I think we understood the Gen 6 car and what it likes and doesn't like out there drafting. So I'm looking forward to getting there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next question is from Terry Blunt from ESPN.com. Please state your question.
Hi, Matt. I just wanted to ask you a quick question about Tony Stewart. And he's going through the worst slump of his career, clearly, and First of all, do you sympathize with what he's going through? And as a veteran driver, what do you do when you have slumps like that? I mean, I know you've had ups and downs too. What do you tell yourself? What do you tell your team? How do you stay focused on, getting the most out of the team and getting back to where you were? What's the process there?
Well, I think everybody's different, and I don't think there's a secret formula. I don't think there's a formula that would work for everybody, and everybody's different. And certainly, if you're in the sport long enough, maybe with the exception of Jimmy Johnson, I don't know if he's really been through one yet, but other than that, if you're in the sport long enough, you're going to go through a slump, as you called it, and you're going to have a time where you're certainly not putting up the numbers you think you should be putting up. You're not running as good as you think you should be running. All those things, and I think that's something that I think it's something you learn from. I think you got to try to get it fixed as soon as you can, because it's frustrating to not run as good as what you feel like as a group you're capable of running. So that's always a frustrating experience, and like I said, I think everybody handles that different. Everybody tries to figure out how to fix it differently, and it can be humbling, and at the end of the day, a lot of times it can turn out to be a positive. It just makes you that much better on the other side of it, and I also think after you go through kind of a slump or a time when you don't win for a while, I think it certainly makes you appreciate and enjoy the next wins that much more.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Our next question is from Robert Dorgy from BRD Broadcasting. Please state your question.
Thank you. Matt, I'd like to lighten the subject up a little bit. You and your wife, Katie, have 4 cats. One of them you named Lars after Lars Ulrich of your favorite band. The second cat you named Charlotte, of course, after your first Sprint Cup win. Now you got 2 kittens, one named Miley, the other one I think is named Sully. Can you fill in any information to my curiosity about what their names have to do with anyone or anything?
I don't know that any of them really have quite as much significance as everybody thinks they have, but Katie named those 2 cats. She just picked them out. I don't know why. So I don't really have much of a good story for you on that one.
Okay, and one other thing, we get from all the crew members that you're one of the guys that does a lot of joking around with everybody. And is there any one thing that stands out in your mind? You said, "Boy, I should have never done that one because that was too big of a joke on my crew members."
Oh, nothing off the top of my head right now that I can really think of. So I try to I like to kid around with people. I always tell everybody, and people that know me well tell me all the time too, that only my jokes are funny. Only I think my jokes are funny. So I don't play a lot of pranks because I don't like a lot of pranks on me. But I like to joke around with my buddies every now and again.
Well, keep up the great racing. Thanks for being on with us.
Oh, thank you.
Our next question is from Joe Stiglitz from Freelance Writer. Please state your question.
Hey, Matt, not to get you to look too far ahead here, but you'll have the Sonoma race coming up in June. How curious are you to see how this Gen 6 car handles on a road course for the first time?
I guess a little curious. So we're going to do some road course tests, and I think most of the teams do. I'm not sure when. You actually caught me off guard on that one because I've looked pretty far forward, but I have not looked that far forward yet. So, but we are doing some road course testing, I think, here in 2 or 3 weeks. So I imagine once we get home from Darlington, we'll probably start looking into that a little bit more. But I'm looking forward to going there. There hasn't been a track so far this year that I feel like we've been, really, really weak at, or we had a real bad weakness, like we could really get beat at a place like that. And certainly Sears Point's probably been, my biggest struggle, or probably one of my worst tracks throughout my career. So I am looking forward to, go out and doing some testing, and then getting out there, with one of these race cars and see if I can do better.
Anything about any characteristics of this car that you think, could translate well to road racing from the experience so far?
Yeah, I mean, they drive better everywhere because they're lighter, and we got more camber in rear end, and we have more downforce. So I mean, just being lighter and having more downforce is going to make them drive better everywhere.